I don't think I'll be honest if I tell you that torture doesn't take place.
So it's like they were giving us death tests. I mean the police officers.
Butting your head, because the last arrest they intentionally butt my head against the door before putting me in. I think what saved me was maybe my dreads.
For years, stories of torture and inhumane treatment remained hidden behind prison walls and detention centers in the Gambia. But for survivors like Honorable Madi Cisse, those memories remain impossible to forget.
Because after the release of the party leader, when I went to see him, he said, your son suffered a lot because of you, Madi. And when I went to visit him, he showed me his teeth that was broken, that he bit and broke his teeth. He showed me his teeth. He said, Dad, this is what they have done to me.
In this documentary, Askanwi features victims, human rights advocates, parliamentarians, legal practitioners, and the government.
The degree of torture that is happening now is not comparable to what used to happen during Jammeh's time. But there are still tortures in this country, both psychologically and physically.
Torture was more brutal during the dictatorship. However, with the advent of social media, torture is increasingly being exposed, highlighting the lack of security sector reforms.
Torture is almost endemic in the Gambia. Recently, we've seen police officers arresting people in very cruel of ways, dropping them behind vehicles, handcuffing them and beating them. These are all things that have been captured by the Torture Act. And unfortunately, we have had no recorded case in the Gambia as I speak, to the best of my knowledge, that have any one person has been taken to court on the offense of torture, either public or civil torture.
The government has enacted the Prevention and Prohibition of Torture Act, but nobody has been prosecuted over the last 3 years. In fact, the country continues to face mounting pressure from international partners to take concrete steps to confront torture. Let's hear from the Director of Public Prosecutions, speaking on behalf of the Solicitor General.
Important obligations remain outstanding, particularly the ratification of the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture, that is OPCAT, and the establishment of an effective preventive mechanism. The urgency of this process is clear. During the Gambia 2024 Universal Periodic Review, the 16 United Nations member states recommended that the Gambia ratify the OPCAT. Equally, the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, that is the TRRC, identified the prevention of torture and abuse of detention setting as essential to guarantee never again mantra and strengthening the democratic accountability.
During our arrest, we were malhandled, which is a form of torture. And then after our arrest, like I said, when we were arrested, they took us to the paramilitary headquarters in Carnegie, where we were packed in one big hall for some times, and no one was talking to you. That alone was also, psychological torture, because you had been arrested without anyone telling you anything. You are just packed in one big hall with your colleagues for almost 2-3 hours without knowing what is going to be your fate. When they arranged a vehicle, there was this one big truck that they arranged, which was supposed to transfer us from Kanifing to Janyambure prisons. We were all packed, like in pairs, and every 2 people will be cuffed with in pair with one cuff. And even the way that they would drag you in that truck was inhuman. They would just pick you up just like a dustbin or whatever, and then throw you in the truck. And when we got in there, like in the truck, like I said, we were packed like sardines. And then there's this event that I can remember during the time that we have been transported to Janjamure. There were a whole lot of mental torture when it comes to threats that were being, meted on us. So it's like they were giving us death threats. I mean the police officers.
Lamin C's story is not an isolated one. During the era documented by the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, many Gambians came forward with accounts of torture and abuse. And if you're still watching this video, kindly like, share, and subscribe to Askanwi Media on our various social media platforms shown on the screen. Also, hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next episode on torture, focusing on places of detention. Back to the story.
Torture is as old as a human being. The Gambia has gone through a phase. Thank God we had to hear the very weird and obnoxious testimony emanating from the TRRC with regards to torture that was kind of institutionalized. So one of the backdrops of the TRRC recommendation was to ensure that there's never a torture. And one of its successes was coming into place of the Prevention and Prohibition of Tortures Act 2023 around April. And that law is a recent law in the Gambia. Unfortunately, there's no retroactivity of law, meaning that those who committed torture before that law cannot be tried with that law. I think our goal today is to ask ourselves, how successful is the new law?
Although the never again mantra emerged from the findings of the TRRC and led to the enactment of the Anti-Torture Act, the reality on the ground reveals a different story. Aliuba, a member of Gambians Against Looted Assets Gala, was among those seen being thrown into a pickup twice by officers during a public assembly outside the National Audit Office in late 2025.
And I don't think anybody should be brutally, manhandled, thrown into a pickup where you can, break a bone, you can break your spine. And we know the spine is very sensitive. Or even, butting your head, because the last arrest they intentionally butt my head against the door before putting me in. I think what saved me was maybe my dreads. So, yeah, I don't know what that is if it's not torture. So it's actually very clear, and the videos are there, and it's something that is as clear as day. So yeah, of course, I will consider it as torture.
I don't think I'll be honest if I tell you that torture doesn't take place. It talks about torture, inhumane and degrading treatment. There are incidents of heavy-handedness at the detention facilities. But what we have witnessed, however, is mainly in policing public assemblies. This is mainly because the police are aware that there is an institution that people can report. So I think they're a bit careful. We still have report, we do, and we take it up with the level at a high level. And as I speak to you right now, there are cases before the commission of alleged torture and inhumane and degrading treatment.
The president of Team Gumsabopa, Ali Killer Ace Cham, also recounts his experience with police officers after he was arrested during a public assembly.
When we got into the van, right, this is how sneaky they are. They knew that outside of the van, the media was there, right? So they wait as soon as we got into the van, right? It's not even funny, but it just shows you how tactical these people are. So inside of the van, we are covered. No media can cover that. I got involved after I see Abdullah Tiba being harassed. And I was the one filming, right? And because they saw me filming, now I started getting harassed, right? For one, defending Abdullah Tiba and also being the guy with the camera. Right, and what's so sad is that I had a gift that was given to me, this necklace, right? If you look at the videos, right, before the arrest and after, and the officers popped my necklace, right? One of my phones fell down and got shattered. It's still here, the shattered phone is here. My Samsung telephone is shattered, right? And my beads, all over the floor. My glasses broken, all in this brutalization of us peaceful protesters, right, who did not even resist arrest or anything, as you can see in the videos.
The fundamental principle of a democratic society is that the state should be subjected to the people. not the people being subjected to the state. And the only way that the people can be subjected to the state is a form of coercion, a form of violence, a form of torture. And torture should not be just reduced to the realm of physical torture, but psychological torture. You know, the threat that, for example, if you don't vote for me, I will not bring so and so infrastructure in your community. That's a form of torture. Now you're actually coercing people to vote for you, but they're not doing it willingly. They're doing it because they need roads, they need water, they need electricity. So I think we must broaden that conversation in how torture is inflicted psychologically and also physically.
Put me in a confinement and said nobody should see me, and I hear my own daughter coming to ask for me, and they said, no, he's not here. That torture, psychological torture, was the beginning of my tortures. And then after 1 week, I was moved to the NIAs, and then NIAs, they have a torture chamber. If whoever is familiar with the NIAs, after the entrance, you go in, there is a building, between the two buildings, there is a open space. That's where they picked me early in the morning, from my cells in the NIA, around 3, 4 a.m. by 8 soldiers or more. Their faces always covered. And then as they were taking me to the chambers, they were kicking me, knocking me, and telling me, you stupid journalist, we'll teach you a lesson. And when I get to the ground, which I call the torture chambers, and then they started beating me. And in the beatings, they use all kinds of anything that they can lay their hands on. Whether it's a stick, it's a cable, belt, and all of them. And I can't recognize anybody. Only 2 people who were actually the supervisors of the tortures. They are all late now. Late Tumbul Tamba and late Musa Jame. These are the 2 who command the group of those 8 people. And that tortures lasted for a long time. And at the end, I had cuts all over my body. Even today, I suffer from backache. If I want to bend, it's still a problem for me. I manage, but I still suffer with that kind of pain. So and the other torture is, in April 14, when Solo Sandem and his group went out, my son, my biological son, Ibrahim Janko Sise, who was in 1983 born, was in the group. But he went there as a journalist because he's speaking from where I stopped. So he was also subjected to terrible tortures, because after the release of the party leader, when I went to see him, he said, your son suffered a lot because of you, Madi. And when I went to visit him, he showed me his teeth that was broken, that he bit and broke his teeth. He showed me his teeth. He said, that is what they have done to me. So, and they subjected him to a cell that is not conducive to an asthmatic patient. So shortly after his release, he died. So these are tortures that I feel personally.
We asked international and local experts how torture can be prevented before it happens. They explained that one solution is for the government to ratify the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture, OPCAT. An Omega researcher and Women's Association for Women and Victims Empowerment, WAVE, senior technical advisor, spoke to Askanwi about preventing torture before it happens.
So the OPCAT is the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture. So it is an add-on to the convention, and when that is signed by countries, they then have specific obligations, and one of those is to establish a national preventive mechanism. And this is a mechanism that is able to go into places of detention and report upon what they see and push for specific improvements. And that goes to the Committee Against Torture, and they can work to improve the conditions in places of detention. It's very important to sign, and signing it shows a very strong commitment to eradicating torture and ill treatment.
So it takes it to allow, for example, national preventive mechanisms to be established. And those preventive mechanisms are an additional layer for human rights promotion and protection, because through that, you also get to have those visits to places of detention. You also get to have the work of other institutions that will be part and parcel of not just detention monitoring, but prevention and promotion, not promotion, but prevention work and prohibition of torture and inhumane and degrading treatment, particularly in places where individuals are deprived of their liberty. So it is key, it's crucial, and it's critical to have. And what we need to look at when we talk about national preventive mechanisms, it's not just about the legality of issues, it's a whole embodiment. You look at people's psychosocial support needs, their medical needs, the legal needs are there, which one institution by itself, say for example the National Human Rights Commission, would not be able to do by themselves alone unless they have those different units within the Human Rights Commission.
It is said in English that prevention is better than cure. If you prevent an illness, will you have to worry about the remedy to cure it? So if you look at our Torture Act, the full title is called The Prevention and Prohibition of Torture in the Gambia. Now look at it, 2 dimensions. Prevention is exactly what OPCAT is all about. OPCAT is about putting into place a preventive mechanism to mitigate torture before it occurs. So I can tell you that Gambia has technically adopted the OPCAT, technically. And they have not basically put in place institutions that will engage and ensure that torture does not occur.
A TRRC victim who now chairs Parliament's Human Rights and Constitutional Matters Committee, Honorable Madi Sise, called on the government to ratify the OPCAT.
You see, the difference here is the OPCAT is the operational tool. If you have the CAT and you don't ratify the OPCAT, you cannot operationalize the CAT. So therefore, that is why it's so important that this government really should be serious enough now to make sure that this thing comes to the Parliament so that it is ratified. I told the minister several times, I told several meetings that as soon as it reaches the Parliament, it will be really ratified because it's a very important convention. If we don't do it, we cannot operationalize the CAT. That's it. So it's so important. It's just like you have your vehicle and you don't have fuel. It cannot go. So we need it.
As government, we recognize that the time has come to move from commitment to implementation, from commitment to actions. As such, OPCAT requires the establishment of national preventive mechanism within 1 year of ratification, making earlier institutional planning both necessary and strategic. In the Gambia context, this is not only timely but long overdue.
Renowned human rights advocate Madi Jobate of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice questioned the government's commitment after the Convention Against Torture was enacted through the Anti-Torture Act in 2023.
Signing the CAT requires within 1 year to create an MPM. We are counting 3 years. So the steps he said are obvious. That's what you got to do. But then what's the timeline? I think we need to speak to that. We cannot spend another 3 years coming here to meet or another 1 year. So I think between the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs got to tell us practically how do we get this ratification? The Parliament is here, and I guess they can also express their commitment that if the bill arrives, they'll do the needful. But in the meantime, I think the government needs to tell us when they want to go and ratify this optional protocol.
Now, if you made it to the end of this video, kindly like, share, and subscribe to Ask and We Media on our various social media platforms shown on the screen. You can also hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next episode on torture, focusing on places of detention. Yusuf Taylor for Ask and We Media.